Back in the late 19th century, Britain was on top of the world. It was the planet's biggest industrial powerhouse, its navy ruled the waves, and London was the undisputed financial capital. But underneath all that confidence, a quiet fear was growing. A newly unified Germany was catching up, and fast. It was industrializing at a shocking pace, exporting cheaper goods, and starting to challenge Britain's long-held dominance. What happened next is one of history's most fascinating case studies in how trying to crush a rising rival can accidentally make them even stronger. Our story really kicks off with the Panic of 1873, a global financial crisis that shattered the illusion that British industry was unbeatable. For decades, Britain had led the way with coal, textiles, and iron, but by the late 1800s, its factories were getting old. Germany, on the other hand, was a fresh start. It was building brand new modern plants and pouring money into technical education, chemistry, steel, and engineering. German companies were adopting scientific management and precision manufacturing, while many British firms were stuck in their old ways, relying on tradition. The result was inevitable. German goods started to appear everywhere on the international market. They were often cheaper, and increasingly, they were just plain better than their British counterparts. So, how did British manufacturers react? Did they modernize? Did they innovate? Nope. They lobbied the government. They launched a campaign claiming German exports were junk, that unsuspecting consumers were being tricked into buying low-quality foreign junk. This pressure campaign led to the Merchandise Marks Act of 1887. This new law required all imported goods to be clearly labeled with their country of origin. The target was obvious: Germany. The idea was simple: slap a label on their products to stigmatize them. Made in Germany was supposed to be a warning sign, a mark of inferiority. The plan was to protect British industry by damaging Germany's reputation, not by actually competing on quality or price. It was a brilliant plan, except for one small detail: it failed, spectacularly. Almost immediately, the plan started to unravel. Instead of scaring buyers away, the Made in Germany label became an accidental seal of approval. German manufacturers didn't try to hide their origin, they leaned into it. They doubled down on improving quality, consistency, and engineering precision. Before long, consumers started to associate Made in Germany not with cheap knockoffs, but with reliability and excellent craftsmanship. What Britain intended as a scarlet letter of shame, Germany turned into a badge of honor. This incredible transformation wasn't just a lucky break for Germany. It was the result of a deliberate national strategy. Germany had built its entire economy around the idea of production excellence. Their universities worked hand in hand with industry. Engineers weren't just workers. They were respected professionals. Companies reinvested their profits back into research and development. While Britain was busy focusing on finance, shipping, and managing its vast empire, Germany was laser-focused on one thing: mastering the art of making things. The label Britain forced on them just highlighted this fundamental difference. It unified all German products under a single, recognizable brand that increasingly stood for quality. By the early 20th century, the full extent of Britain's blunder was clear. German industrial output had skyrocketed, while British manufacturing was stagnating. Global markets had shifted. Britain had tried to use a law to hold back the tide of competition instead of building a better boat. The lesson was crystal clear. Real economic power doesn't come from laws or labels. It comes from the ability to produce, from skills, and from innovation. And, if this story sounds familiar, it should. We've seen a strikingly similar cycle play out in our own lifetimes. For decades, Made in China was seen as a label for cheap, low-quality goods. It carried many of the same negative stereotypes that once surrounded German products. But, just like Germany, Chinese companies steadily moved up the value chain. They invested massively in logistics, automation, engineering talent, and building robust domestic supply chains. And as their competitiveness grew, what happened? resistance from the established economic powers, modern trade wars, export controls, and technology bans all share the same basic logic as Britain's Merchandise Marks Act. The thinking is that you can freeze the global hierarchy in place with sanctions or restrictions, but history teaches us that the opposite is often true. These barriers can actually force a country to become more self-reliant, to innovate faster, and to strengthen its own internal capabilities. Instead of stopping the competition, these moves just give them a powerful incentive to get even better. Now, this doesn't mean that every restriction is doomed to fail, or that economic rivalry is simple. What it does mean is that fundamental economic forces are usually stronger than laws. When a country truly masters production, the skills, the infrastructure, the supply chains, and the scale, it creates its own economic gravity. Trying to suppress that gravity with legal tricks often just makes the rising power more resilient and more competitive in the long run. The real lesson from Britain's historic miscalculation isn't about blaming anyone. It's about understanding economics. Dominant powers often mistake control for strength. They fall into the trap of thinking their advantages will last forever. Rising powers, on the other hand, have no choice. They have to constantly improve or they will fail. Over time, that pressure creates incredible adaptability. Britain's attempt to protect its status only accelerated its relative decline, while Germany's response to being targeted sharpened its industrial edge. History shows us this pattern again and again. Labels meant to shame become powerful brands. Restrictions meant to isolate become catalysts for innovation. True, lasting economic leadership doesn't belong to those who try to legislate against change. It belongs to those who master it. Britain learned that lesson the hard way, more than a century ago. It seems the modern world is in the process of learning it all over again. Thanks for watching, and if you found this interesting, don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories from history.